Good afternoon, everybody. Will again coming to you from the Crowdfunder headquarters down here in Newquay. And it's time for the second part of the Crowdfund NatWest RugbyForce webinar. This week we are talking about creating your project. So that is adding your project to the website, starting to get all the details on there and getting it ready to go live in a few weeks' time. I know a lot of you have already done that and started that process, which is great. Some of you haven't, but not to worry, there's plenty of time. And obviously after this webinar, that's where we're going to be moving towards, is getting you all to add your projects and start getting the details down there on the website. Firstly, just want to mention that obviously I know I've been chasing you quite hard this week on getting back to me to let me know that you're definitely going to be involved in the campaign. Thanks to all of you who've got back to me. Most of you have. There's a few of you that haven't, so please do just pop me a note to let me know that you're definitely going to be involved, so we can push forward. Obviously, if for whatever reason you can't, not to worry, but it'd be great to know so we can give the opportunity to some other clubs. So without further ado then, let's get cracking today. So as I mentioned, today we are talking about creating your project. So 2 weeks ago, we spoke about planning your project, getting everything in place, ready to go, all the things you should be doing to start planning your project. Today, it's about actually creating that project, getting it onto the website and starting to bring all the pieces together so you're ready to go live when the time comes. Really quickly then, just going to recap what we spoke about a couple of weeks back. So we spoke about planning your project. So putting a plan in place, a spreadsheet, a checklist, starting to think about when you want to do certain things by assigning tasks to people and really starting to tick off that checklist and get things all in place. Thinking about the different skills you had around you. Obviously, you can't do everything yourself. Pulling together a good team of people to help you out and really make this project a success. And then starting to think about your crowd, starting to map out your network. Who do you know? Who's going to be interested in your project? Who's going to be pledging? Who's going to be sharing the project? And who's going to be influencing other people to pledge too? So hopefully by now you've all gone through some of these stages. You're all thinking about those things and you're ready to get online, get onto the Crowdfunder website and start adding the details of your project. So what are we talking about today? We're talking about creating your project. There's four main parts to this, as you can see there. Part A, description. This is really important. This is the fun part. This is you telling your story. This is bringing everything that you've got, bringing it together and telling your supporters why they should back your project and why they should get involved. We'll come on to some more detail about that in a minute. Then there's a video. This isn't essential. You don't have to have a video. You can go live without a video. We think it's great. We think it's really important. It's a great way to tell your story and really engage with people. But obviously we understand that some of you might not have the capability to do that. But if you do, please do think about doing a video. And again, we'll come on to a little bit more about that in a minute. Rewards, which we've spoken about before. This is what you'll offer people in return for their pledges. We've got some good examples, and it's definitely a really good idea to start thinking about this sort of thing as early as possible. And finally, your target. How much are you going to try and raise? There's some crude maths we can do around working out what's potentially achievable, and then thinking about what is the target that you should be setting for your project. So firstly then, the description. So like I said, this is your story. This is you telling your visitors to your page why they should pledge on your project, what it is you're doing, who you are, why you're doing this, and how they can help. And as you can see, there's three main key points. What are you trying to achieve? What makes your project great? Why should people help you? And then a little bit about yourself. Who are you? What's your experience? Get people to support not just your project, but get them to support you. In your pack that I sent you the link for, if you haven't downloaded that yet, please do at the end of this, download the second pack about creating your project. There's a couple of really useful exercises in there where you can actually start, noting down what your key messages are. What are the key points you want to get across in that description. There's also a really good page here, page 6, structure, some key areas that you can hit in your, in your description. It's like being back at school with your essay plan, talk about your opening, what are you trying to achieve, what makes you great, etc., etc. It's really important to structure that description. You don't want it to be, waffling. You don't want it to be lots of text. You want to really break it down, structure it, make it nice and easy to follow, and get your message across. So those are the key points to hit in your description. Descriptions, it's really important the way it looks. We all know sitting down and trying to read a big chunk of text is pretty hard, and not many people are going to do it. Get some images in there, get some pictures in there amongst the text. It breaks the text up, and it's great to show who you are as a club. Some lovely images, get people really engaged. Historical moments. Do you have any old images of the club, people that have been involved in the club in the past, things you've done in the past, things that are going to inspire people to want to get involved? Testimonials are a great thing. So obviously you're talking about yourself, who you are and what you're doing, but if you can get other people talking about you, get some quotes in there, talk about how important it is that what you're doing it succeeds. That's really powerful. Team photos. Everyone wants to see a team behind this. Everyone wants to see a community. They don't want to feel like they're supporting one person doing one thing. You're all doing this for rugby teams. Get some team photos in there. Show that community that you've got. Similarly to the images, headings. Break your text up. You don't want, like I said, you don't want big chunks of text. Break it up with some headings. Make it really simple. Make it really easy for people to pick out the bits they want to read and the bits they want to know. And another cool little thing to do is maybe add a little map. Show people where your club is. Then they know it's their local club, and they know if they want to get involved. There's a page in that pack that matches this with a bit more information about each one of these sections. But these are some really interesting things to think about when making that project description. The images, the testimonials, and the headings are really important. And I would say, with all of the things we're talking about today, one of the best things to do is go away and look at some other projects, see how other people have done it. And you'll see in the packs that you've got, on the last page, there's some links off to some really good sports projects who've done this really well. So across the board, at all times, always have a look at some other projects. It's a really good way to see how other people have done it and how you can do it too. So that's your description. Now we're going to talk just briefly about the video. Like I said, it's not essential. You don't have to do a video. You can go live without one. However, it's a great way of engaging people in what you're doing. It's a great way of putting a person in front of another person. People would much rather sit and watch a couple of minutes of the video than they would read through a whole block of text. Get yourself in the video. Get someone to help you and get yourself in front of the camera. That's really important. If you are going to do this video, get people in it. Get yourself in it, get your face in it, and get some other people in it. Show that there's a lot of people involved in this, and just put a face to the project. It makes it so much easier for someone to decide if they want to get involved by seeing a face. Maybe they know you, and therefore they immediately can relate to you and want to get involved. And even if they don't know you, the fact that there's someone talking to them, telling them about the project, is going to make it a lot easier for them to make that decision as to whether they want to get involved. Coming back over to the left side then, keeping it short and sweet, really important. 90 seconds to 2 minutes maximum. People probably won't even watch the whole 2 minutes. People, in this day and age, they want to see a very short and sweet video, and they want to know what it is they're dealing with very quickly. If you can get across to them in a very short video who you are, what you're doing, and why they should get involved, that's really powerful. And that's where a video can really come into its own over a big block of text. The other thing to think about when you're making that video, if you are going to do one, is write down some key points to guide you, but don't script it. You can have a loose script, but really it wants to seem natural. You want to just talk to the camera, write down some key points to guide you, and then just sit there and talk to the camera, and it'll all come out, and you can obviously edit it a little bit afterwards. But we would always recommend to not script it too strictly. All the best videos have that natural feel to them. And talking about that as well, it doesn't have to be professional. It doesn't have to be a big professional production. It can be a camera phone. The cameras are decent enough on camera phones these days. Get your mate, sit down in front of a camera phone, think about the location. It'd be great to be doing it at your rugby club, maybe in the bar, maybe in the changing room, maybe outside, depending on the weather. Get yourself in a nice location, get your mate to shoot you with your camera phone, and just talk. Tell people who you are, what you're doing, and then you can cut it down to that 90 seconds, 2 minutes. And you could end up with a really powerful little video. Again, in the pack, there's a link off to a couple of really good videos. And likewise, we just recommend having a look on the website, see who else has done it and how they've done it to really get some good ideas of how to do it yourself. Moving on then, rewards. Now, before I talk about rewards, I just want to remind you all of back at the start when we spoke about in the introduction webinar. To those who've seen it, we spoke about what we are at Crowdfunder. We're a rewards-based crowdfunding platform. And you may remember that diagram where there's 2 reasons why people might want to pledge on a project. One of them is that they know you, they like you, and they like your idea and they want to support it. And the other side is that they really like your reward and they want to pledge on your project because they want that reward. Where those two cross over is a sweet spot in the middle, and that's what we're really looking for. The people who love what you're doing, want to support you, but also really want to pick up one of your rewards. Now, granted, with your projects, most of those people are going to be coming to your project because they know who you are. They're friends of the club and they want to get involved, they want to help you out. But those rewards can still be a really good way of getting those people to A, pledge a little bit more than they may have done anyway, because they're going to get something really cool in return. And B, when they start telling their friends who don't necessarily know about the club and who you are, when they see some really cool rewards, that's going to help them get involved as well. So although, granted, a lot of your backers are going to be coming from people who are just coming in because they want to support the club, rewards are still really important and can really make the difference between someone pledging 10 or maybe up to £50 and can obviously make the difference between a success and a failure as far as your project goes. So a couple of key things to think about rewards. You can see on the screen here, there's a couple of some suggested areas that rewards work really well in. Some really important stuff: make your rewards good value. People want to think they're getting good value for money. People want to think that they're going to spend their money and they're going to get something in return that they wouldn't have been able to get for that amount of money somewhere else. Think about a good price range. Start low, £5, £10, easy entry level. Lots of people can get involved. Don't be afraid to go high. £100, £200, £300. Go up that higher end. So there are those places where people can get involved if they want to at that amount. And something that's really important and actually could work really well, particularly for your projects, is limited rewards. 1 available of this, 2 available of this. Exclusive stuff, things that people can't buy anywhere else. Those are going to be the kind of things that are going to really want to get people involved. Maybe they don't have a monetary value that they're picking up, but they're getting an experience, they're getting something that they're not going to be able to get anywhere else. And particularly for people who know and love the club, that's going to be the kind of thing that's going to really pull those people in and get them involved. So just quickly run through these. Merchandise, that could be club shirts, balls, simple things like that. Experiences, that could be hospitality at some of the games. I don't know whether you have any links to any bigger clubs or have the ability to get tickets to go and see bigger games or certain events that people could get involved in. Sponsorship, this is an interesting one. This is where you might be thinking about maybe targeting some local businesses to sponsor the club, names on shirts, boards around the side of the pitch, that sort of thing. And then events, like I said, again, that kind of ties in with experiences. That's people coming along to games, celebration parties of the end of the crowdfunding project. Obviously, the RugbyForce weekend itself is going to be an event. So these are some of the really key areas that rewards can work. You don't try and mold them in to fit these, but this is just something to get you thinking. Again, in the pack, there's a lot more information and in-depth stuff about how to offer really good rewards. And there are some really good examples in the pack of how other sports clubs and what sort of thing they've offered. From our experience, just a couple of ideas off the top of my head here for sports clubs, things like getting a name on an honours board somewhere. That's really nice. Maybe that's a lower end, £5, £10. Get your name on the honours board, be part of that club, be part of that club's history. Or we've had some clubs do things like name a changing room peg. So every peg in the changing room has a little plaque, someone's name. They were part of supporting that club and building that changing room or whatever it is that you're doing. As I mentioned, hospitality, free drinks, food at the games, that kind of thing's really good. Shirts, merchandise, game shirts, signed shirts. And again, this is where you can tap into some more influential people if you're able to get hold of some signed shirts from maybe a bigger team or a relatively famous player, that sort of thing. Experiences, again, can you bring in any relatively well-known people? Do you have the ability to get some tickets to bigger games? Those sorts of things. Can you bring some of those things and offer them out as rewards? Again, maybe just 1 or 2, make them really limited, higher end, and that's going to really make them a bit exciting and get people involved. And then, like I said, advertising. Local businesses. Do you know some local businesses that might want to pledge £300, £400, £500 and have their names on your shirts for a year, something like that, or a banner on the side of the pitch? Again, for sports clubs, those are really good. If you get 1 or 2 of them in, you could be well on your way to hitting your target quite easily. So that's rewards. Again, Plenty more information in the pack. Really important to look at some examples of how other sports clubs have done it to give you some inspiration there. Finally, then, that brings me on to the last point here, which is your target. You know, a lot of people might think that you pluck this number, you think how much you want, and you pluck it out of the sky and off you go. Obviously, setting your target is really important. Choosing the right target is really important. When setting your target, there's a couple of things you need to bear in mind. Obviously, primarily, first and foremost, you need to raise enough money to be able to do what you actually want to go and do. You need to have a minimum in mind. You need to know that if you raise the money that you asked for, that you are going to be able to go on and actually do what you want. So that's the first thing to think about. What is the minimum you need? What do you actually need to raise to be able to go and do, realize what it is that you're trying to do? Next thing to then think about is what you can see on the screen here is some sort of crude maths that we've got from various, from averages effectively across our whole platform. This is really good to see, to give you an idea of how realistic a target might be. So the average pledge on a crowdfunding project across our platform is £50. That's the average amount that someone will pledge. And then 1 in 20 people who actually then look at your project page will go on and make a pledge. So not everyone who sees your project will make a pledge, 5%. So 1 in 20 will go on and make a pledge. And then obviously you've also got to think about your rewards. Fulfilling those rewards, is that going to cost you anything? And therefore, how much do you need to account for that in your target? Let's work through an example. Let's say you're trying to raise £2,000. You need 40 people to come in and pledge £50 on average to hit £2,000. Therefore, you need 800 people to come and look at your project page on average in order to get those 40 people pledging in order to get that £2,000. So work back from that. Do you think, if you're trying to raise £2,000, do you think you can drive 800 people to your project page? If you think that across your networks, the club's networks, and anybody else you know, you can get 800 people onto the page, then great, fantastic. So that's a really important thing to think about. Really good little bit of maths there to just work through in your head and just to give you that idea of, is this realistic? And actually, most of the time, when you're launching your project, you want to be in a position where you're 90% sure that actually you've got this, you're going to hit your target, and everything's going to be absolutely fine. Obviously, you can never be 100% sure, but it's great to know that you've done this maths, you've worked it back in your head, and you know that really you're most of the way there. The lower you can go, the better. Make your target nice and low, minimum amounts. What is the minimum you need to do this? You can always overfund. You can always stretch your target and go further. What's the minimum you need? Reason I say that that's really important is because all of your projects are going to be on what we call the all or nothing funding method. This means you either hit your target and collect the money or you don't. So that's why it's so important to set that target at something that's realistic, something you're going to achieve. And that's why it's so important to work that back in your head and be confident that when you're launching your project, you're going to hit that target. So start low. What's the minimum you need? You can always go over it. And that's really important. Again, in the pack, there's loads more information about this. I'm obviously going to be sending you guys some more emails just to remind you about various different things. But ultimately, I'm here, for any questions you've got, one-on-one sort of stuff. If you've got any specific questions, I'm happy to talk to any of you about that. Finally, a point to just mention is duration of projects. A lot of you might be thinking, how long are we going to be running our projects for? We would always recommend to go live for 28 days, 4 weeks. There's a pretty average standard lifetime of a project. Starts off like this. It's an inverted U. You get a lot of traffic at the start and you'll get a lot of interest at the end. In the middle, it kind of drops down, gets pretty quiet, and that can get pretty tough. You don't want to let that be too long a period. Keep it short, keep it sweet. About 28 days, that's the perfect amount of time to drum up enough interest. But obviously, it's not going to take up too much of your time. It can be a pretty tiring process, pretty full-on process, so you want to keep it as short as you can. That means that your projects really need to be going live sort of mid-May, something like that. More, I'll give you a bit more guidance on that nearer the time, but there's plenty of time to sort of get all these things in place so you can get your projects live, run them for 4 weeks, raise the funds, and obviously have the money then in time to actually go ahead and do what it is you need to do on the NatWest RugbyForce weekend. Finally then, what's next? Start crowdfunding. Like I said, I know a lot of you have already done this, and that's great. That's brilliant. Some of you haven't. Not to worry. Now's the time to do it. I'll be sending you all another email with the link to do this. There's a specific link you need to follow to make sure your project is associated with the campaign. So I'll be sending you all another link in an email tomorrow. And this is the next thing to do. Now's the time. Start crowdfunding. Start adding your details. Like I say, we've got plenty of time before the next things need to start happening. But it's it's really good to start thinking about all this stuff and pulling it together. Your description, your video, your rewards, and how to think about that target. Next steps is the next webinar. Now that's quite a long way off. It's 3 weeks away. And the reason for that is that this period is a bit, can take a bit longer. I know obviously you're all doing this in your spare time, so you've got plenty of time now, 3 weeks, to put all those project pages together. Idea being by Tuesday the 25th, most of you are in a position where your projects are pretty much ready to go and just need a few tweaks here and there. And then what we'll be talking about there is actually running your projects, promoting your project, things you should be doing when it's live, to really, get it off to a great start, run it all the way through and make sure you have a good finish and hit your target. So next 3 weeks is really focusing on getting that project up and ready to go on the page. Obviously not live, but putting all the pieces together on our website. Thanks very much for listening. I will be sending you all an email tomorrow with some details of this webinar, obviously the pack that I'd like you to all download to have a look at, and then obviously that link to start adding your project. And obviously feel free at any time to come back to me with any questions you may have, and I'll speak to you all soon. And obviously the next webinar is in 3 weeks' time, so I'll see you then. Thanks very much.